Right, hi everyone, welcome back to Salesforce Makes Sense. And in this video, we'll be talking about use case 5 on screen flows, right? So if you're someone who's jumping onto this video for the very first time, I would encourage you to take a look at the Flow Builder curriculum. Started from the beginning. The playlist currently contains the first introduction, and then it contains 4 use cases on the screen flow, right? So once you are done with those, then it would be a right time to jump into use case 5, which is this video right here. All right. And for people who have been following, let's jump into this use case and let's start implementing it, right? Let's take a look at what the problem or what the question is. So log a case from the opportunity record page and have the user fill in all the details. As soon as a case is created, assign this case to a queue and log a task for the case owner's manager, right? So a lot of things. First thing, what do we need to do? We need to create a case record. As simple as that, as straightforward, right? What would be the parent? It would be the opportunity. That's correct, because I want to keep this button or this action on the opportunity record page. So I would have cases logged under an opportunity. Fancy. Then I need to fill in all the details, which means I need to fill in all the required fields on the case object when creating it. That's necessary, or else Salesforce throws an error, right? And whenever the case is created, this case should not be assigned to someone specific. It should be assigned to a queue. All right. And this is a queue that will create and will assign the case to this particular queue. Okay, we'll create a case record and we will also log a task record, which means we'll also be creating a task record, which means we'll be creating two different records, a task record and a case record. Okay, and both of them will be tagged to the opportunity. All right, and who should the task be assigned to? It should be assigned to the case owner's manager, which means whoever is the case's owner, right? It should be assigned to the case owner's manager. Now we are assigning the case to a queue, right? Which means whenever the case is taken up by any of the members from the queue, that's when we'll be logging a task and we'll be assigning the case owner's manager to that particular task. Okay, so we'll do this in bits and pieces and we'll figure out the entire problem. All right, and then finally, as part of the challenge, I have when the case is assigned to a queue, which means whenever a case is created and it is assigned to a queue, the queue members should be notified of the case. Okay, and when the task is logged, whenever the task is created, whoever it is assigned to, who is that person, is the case owner's manager. This person should receive an email. All right, so these are the two challenges on notifications that we want to do. The first one is on the case level, the second one is on the task level. All right, so that's the entire use case. Let's jump into Salesforce and let's now create our fifth use case after the 4 use cases that we have created. Okay, will I need a screen flow for this? Yes, because I need, oh, do I need a screen flow? I do not. I need a screen flow. Why? Because I need to create a button, right? It's not just an automation, but I need a button on click of which things should happen, right? And the user should be filling the details of the case, right? That's why I need a screen flow. All right, let's go to Salesforce and let's create our fifth use case flow. And this would be again a screen flow. Let's say screen flow here. Let's say create. And the very first thing I'll do is I'll create a screen here, right? I'll create a screen and I'll label it case creation under opportunity. I'll do the basic stuff. I'll say I don't want to see the header, and under the footer, I can get rid of the pause and the previous button, right? I don't need them. Cool. Let's say done. Let's say save. Okay. So this is screen flow. Let's see how have I written the previous names. Use cases first. Okay. So this should be use case 5 screen flow case under opportunity. All right. So that's the name of my screen flow. All right. Now, what's the first thing that I need to do? I need to activate this. I need to create a button, add it to the opportunity layout, right? So let's quickly do that as well. So I'll just go in here. I just switch to classic because Safari gives a problem in Lightning. So I'll just switch to classic. Let's go to setup. Let's go to opportunities. I'll go to buttons, links, and actions. I'll create a new action and I'll call this logger case, right? So this should be of type flow and this should be my fifth use case. All right, I don't need a standard label. I will create my own label. I'll say logger case or just say log case. Okay, and let's say save. Cool. The button is created. I need to add it to the page layout. So I'll just go to the page layouts, and opportunity layout is the admin page layout, which I'm currently logged in as. So I'll just add it to the page layout as well. So I'll say log case, right? And this is my button. I'll just put it on the top. I'll say save. Now let's switch back to Lightning, and let's open any opportunity, right? Let's say test sold op. I should start seeing my button here. So if I say lock case, this will open the flow, but there's nothing there, so it's finished. Right? Nothing is there. Right. So we've been able to tie up it to the opportunity, but is the flow tied to the opportunity currently? No. What do we need to do based on what you've learned in the last four screen use cases? We need to create a record ID variable. That's correct. Right. So I'll just say record type variable. I'll call it record ID, and this should be of type record, and this should be of object opportunity. Straightforward, very, very straightforward. Available for input. I just need one record, so I'll not mark allow multiple values. I'll say done. I'll say save as, save. I'll not activate it for now. I'll start working on my screen. Okay. So what do I need to do in the first screen? I need to provide them the fields that a case requires to be created, right? So let's look into a case record, and let's try to create a new case record and see what all fields do we need to fill or ask the user to fill, right? So when I click on the new button, I have the contact or account name, the case origin, which is a required field. You have type, you have priority, you have status, and all of this stuff, right? So case reason is also here. So let's do something. Let's give them 2 or 3 pick list values, and let's try to create the case. Okay, let's go in here and let's jump into our screen, and here is where I want to provide them the case variables. So there are two ways to do it. I either choose to create individual fields and then use those inputs directly to create a case record, or else I use a record variable, right? So any method can be used. All right, so I'll just go ahead and start pulling in the input fields. So first of all, I need a pick list, and I think I'll need multiple pick lists because I have case origin and case reason, right? So I have status, I have case origin. So let's take the case origin, right? I'll say require. And here, what should be the component type? It should be a pick list, and I want to create a choice resource, right? How do I create a choice resource that points to the case pick list values? I choose the pick list choice set, right? So I'll say case origin choice. This is my API name, and I'll find the object. I'll find the relevant field here. See, origin is showing up. Okay, I'll just say done. So that creates my choice. What's the second one? The second one should be the status. Okay, even this should be required. I'll say keep it pick list. I need a new choice resource, pick list choice set. I'll say case status. This time again it should be the case object, and the data type should be pick list. It should be the status field. All right, done. What's the third field? Let's take a look at the case record. Do we give them a reason? Let's give them a reason also. Okay, so I'll choose another case pick list. I'll say case reason require, and here I'll say case reason as the pick list choice set. All right, this should be the case object again. So you see how easy it is to bind your object variables directly without having to create the choices and the reasons and trying to associate them. All of that is not required. Okay, let's say done. So I've entered, or I've asked the user for 3 inputs. Okay, let's now take a look at what else is needed. I'll be trying to tag this to an opportunity. If not an opportunity, we'll try to tag it to a contact or an account that's associated to the opportunity. All right, we'll do that. What about the priority? Let's set the priority behind the scenes. That's okay. I believe that should be fine. We'll just go ahead and leave this here. Okay, that's my very first screen. Cool. I'll just say done. And as soon as the user fills all of that in, I want to do something that's called create records, right? Why do I want to create records? I want to create a case record under that opportunity, right? So I'll say create case record under opportunity, right? There's a reason why I'm going a bit impromptu in this video, so that let's try to make some mistakes. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, I want to do that in this particular use case. Let's see what happens. All right, so I'll say I want to create one record and I want to use separate resources because I want to tag or bind each input variable. So I want to create a case record and I want to say that the status should be equal to the case status that I have, right? I want the origin to be the case origin that I have taken from the user, right? And I want the reason to be the case reason that I've taken from the user. All right. What about the priority? We can set the priority manually. We'll set the priority as medium for all such cases. Okay. So I'll just say medium. Awesome. I've just set the 4 fields and I'll say save. Okay. Now, how do I assign this to someone? Do I have an assigned to ID or an owner ID? Let's see. There's an owner ID, right? What should be the owner ID here? It should be assigned to a queue, right? Now, how do I find a queue here? How do I get a queue here? Let's say I create a queue first of all. Let's go into the system and let's create a new queue, correct? So I'll go in here, I'll go to setup and I'll go to queues. So I'll create a new queue. I think I already have a queue. Let's use the same one. It's called test queue. It has an email, that's my email ID, and supports task and the case object. Okay, and currently one user is added to the queue, which is my user who's currently logged in. Okay, and it's called test queue, right? The name of the queue is test underscore queue. So what I'll do is I'll come back here, and before assigning the owner ID here, I need to fetch the queue, correct? And this is something that I need to do a database operation for. So before even jumping into the creation, I need to create a new node here and I need to get records, right? Why do I need to get records? Because I need to figure out which queue I want to assign it to, correct? So I'll say fetch queue to assign the case. Does that make sense? Right? Now here, what should be the object name? So queues and public groups are part of the group object. That's the object, this one right here. Okay, this is the object, and this is where you will see that you have something that's called the name field, right? So I'll take this name field and I'll say it should be equal to the test underscore queue name, right? And I only want to store the very first record because there should be only one queue with this particular name. And let's just do something. Let's rename the queue just to keep the practice very clean and neat, right? Let's not call it test queue. Does not sound good, right? So I'll say case assignment queue. Okay, I'll get rid of the queue name and this should auto populate here. And now this looks a bit more real, right? I want to ensure that, we don't do things like test queue and all of that stuff. So I'll just call this particular case assignment queue here as the name, and I'll store the very first record and I'll say save, right? So what I did is before creating a case, I have a get records. And what does that get record do? It gets me the queue ID, right? And how do I now use it in my case record? Now when I say the owner ID, I can assign this owner ID to the get record that I got from the queue. See, group from fetch queue becomes a record variable, a record single variable. Currently this particular holds a group, which means a queue or a public group. And when I say dot ID, this is basically the group ID that I get, which is nothing but the case assignment queue record ID. So this will automatically select this particular queue and assign it as the owner of the case. All right, let's click on the save button and let's try to test it out once. Okay, let's try to test it out here. Let's come back, or let's even debug it, not even have to see this on the real time. Let's debug it. So I've just clicked on the debug button and it might ask me for an opportunity, but currently we are not using the opportunity record ID. Let's give it, but we are not really using it. So I'll just say run. So I can choose the case origin as phone, the status as escalated, reason as equipment design, and I'll say next, right? So you see something has happened, right? And it says that there's an unhandled flow that has occurred in this flow, and please contact your system administrator, which means something has gone wrong. And here in the debug log, how do you debug what happened? So you see, it started off fine. The interview. It came to the case screen, which we saw. It took the 3 values that we input. It went to the get records, right? And if you notice, it was not able to find any records with the name case assignment queue. That was the problem. All right, so this is the problem that it faced. Now, how do I ensure that it finds this particular queue? Maybe the name should be the label. Let's quickly check it. If I go to the developer console, what I want to do here is I want to run a query. All right, so I'll just run a query on the group object. I'll say id comma name from group order by created date. I want to see the latest created queue, right? So I'll just say desk limit 1. I just want to see what the name is. Is it with the spaces or without the spaces? This is with the spaces, which is why it failed to find the record, right? So I'll just take this as the name, come back to my queue and modify my flow here, right? So this flow get records is failing and it's not able to find it because I've put underscore, which is nothing but the developer name, not the API, not the name, right? So you see this developer name is the API name. So if I were to just put this developer name here, it should work fine. Or I can use the name attribute and use it with the spaces instead of the underscore. Okay, let's save it again, save, and let's debug it one more time. Okay, let's debug, get rid of the previous one. Let's see what happens now. I don't need a record ID for now. Let's just choose the case field values, escalated, equipment capacity problem. Let's say next, and this completed the flow. So you see, this means that it was able to find the record now because we put in the right name, the developer name, and then it was ready to create a case record with the values that we provided. And it says that a record is ready to be created when the next screen pause or the action is executed. Since this was a debug action, it did not execute it. All right. Great. Now let's test it out in the actual system. So I'll just say activate and let's test it out here. Okay, let's switch to lightning and let's go to an opportunity, right? I'll call it sold test op, test sold op. There should be a log case button here. I'll take a look at the button. It opens up fine. It shows me the 3 pick list, right? Which has the 3 values here, 5 values here, and probably 7, 8 values here. I'm good with all the case fields set up and I'll say next. All right, as soon as I click on the next button, a case is logged. Now, how do we check that? We'll have to open the case record object. Okay, let's take a look at the cases object. And here, if I say recently viewed, you see, there's one case that's created here. This is from the previous one that we debugged, I believe. There's one that's the very current case, which is at 4:02 p.m., which is this case right here. Case assignment queue is the owner. Let's open it. And if I go to the details tab here, you'll see that it is currently assigned to the queue. It is not assigned to a specific person. The case number was automatically populated, and the very 3 fields that we set, the reason, the status, and the origin, have been set here. And the priority is always medium. It is a static setting that we have done on the flow. Correct? So we have been able to create a case and we have been able to assign it to a queue. All right, now if we want to associate it to an opportunity, right, or if you want to associate it to the account of the opportunity, how would you do that? I just wanted to show you the reference information, right? So I'll go back to my create case, and instead of just the opportunity, I can even say that the account ID should be. How do you find the account ID? Do you need to do a get record? What do you say? Do you have a possibility to map the account ID directly, or do you need to get that information from the database, just how we got the queue information? No, for this case, you do not need to do a get record. Why? Because account is parent of opportunity, which means you have some kind of access to the account record. How? Because you have a record ID variable which contains the opportunity record, right? So if you notice, this record ID is an opportunity record, and I can very well choose the account ID from here. See this account ID, and I can map the parent account here. Okay, so the case will be mapped to the account ID. All right, if we want to tag it to an opportunity, we just have to create a custom lookup, and we can just create a reference to a opportunity, and we can map that record id.id here, and it would be mapped to the opportunity. Even that can be done. All right, so I've just shown you one reference. Let's click on the save button. Let's say save, and let's click on the activate button. All right, now that this is activated, let's see where is sold test sold op. Is there a parent account here? Let's try to associate a account. Yeah, it is sold test, right? Take a look at the sold test account here, and now let's go into this opportunity and say log a case. Okay, this time I'll say phone new, and the reason is installation. I'll say next, and this has created a new case for us. And now if I were to take at sold test account, let's see if the details tab, the related tab, has the case here. It currently does not. But if I were to take a look at the cases, I'll be seeing that it is tagged or associated to an account, right? Take a look at this particular case, which is created at 4 p.m., still assigned to the case assignment queue, but now you see that it is also tagged or mapped to an account. All right. Right now, the reason we made a mistake there on the queue is because I wanted to show you something. Now you saw that when we debug the flow, it said that the unhandled flow fault has occurred, please contact the system administrator. Now that was not a very good user friendly message, right? And it was not a good user friendly message, meaning this might happen in your real time also. Do you want to see that? Let's remove this particular case assignment underscore and let's just put it as spaces. Right now this is the wrong developer name, and now the flow will not be able to find a record, which means the case creation will fail. Correct. So I'll just activate it, and now let's just give it a test. All right, let's refresh our page. We didn't have to refresh it, but yeah, let's take a look at the log case button. Let's fill in these three things. And will the case be created now? You see, it is trying to get created, but now it's not able to find a queue to assign the owner as, and it's saying an unhandled fault has occurred in this flow. Now, this message is pretty much nothing, right? There's nothing in this message that we are seeing, right? Is there a way to customize or a bit or personalize this? Yes, there's a way, right? How do you do that? So Salesforce flows provide you something called a fault path, right? If everything goes fine, it ends. But if something does not go fine, you have something that's called a fault path. A fault path executes whenever something faulty happens. So whenever you click on these actions, right, you will notice that something you have available as an extra. If you see, screens don't have that, but on actions you have something that's available that says add a fault path, because this is something that's database driven, that is action dependent, and something is happening behind the scenes which may or may not work, right? So if it does not work, do you want a fault path? Yes, let's take a fault path. So in case the queue is not able to find a record, it will take the fault path and it will not create a case. That is what it means, right? So this time it will just finish, but it will not try to create a case. Let's take a look at how this works. Let's click on the save button. All right. And instead of putting this here, what I want to do is I want to delete the fault path from here, and I want to put a fault path here because I want you to see a better message, right? So here, instead of seeing that an unhandled fault error happened, I want to inform the user properly that you know what happened with you. So I'll just say configure header, don't show it. I'll say fault path message. That's the name of the section, and I don't want the previous or the pause buttons, and here I just want to display a text, right? And I want to say something meaningful, right? Fault message, right? What do I want to say? I want to say sorry, your case could not be created. All right, and there's something that's available as part of the fault path. What is that? If you go into insert a resource, you have some variables down below, right? And as part of the flow variables, you have something that's called a fault message. So you can pick up this fault message and store it and put it here as well. So this will show the exact message that the which is the reason why your fault of your flow failed. All right, so I'll just set it in red. I'll put a bold tag to it, and I'll just say done. So now if case creation fails, it will come here into this path and will not go the straight route. So it will show a screen and then you can close it. So you might probably get a better message. It's a bit more readable that, okay, my case did not get created, right? Let's see this in action. Right now, if you see, this is how you see it, right? Let's now log a case again. And we still have not fixed the queue, so it should still throw the error. So you see, it's now telling you, sorry, your case could not be created. And now it is not just your plain information that an unhandled fault has occurred. Now that we have handled it, it is giving you the error that, you know, something is wrong with the owner ID that has been set, and it is currently blank. Why is it blank? Because it could not find the right queue and it is not able to map the queue to it. So you have some idea now, right? And you have some idea, so you should be able to debug it. Or if the business sees it, it's still not a relevant message for the business, for end users. But if they see it, they might be able to raise a case and tell you that, this is what we are getting, and this is a very straightforward cut to understand. Oh, I might have a owner ID assignment on my flow, which is somewhere right here. So what might be going wrong here? Owner ID, something with the queue. Let's see if I'm able to get the queue, which is why I come here and I try to query the queue and see if my filters work and actually get the queue or not. And then I checked, oh, there's a mistake here. It should be case underscore because I'm using the developer name, not the name. And this is a mistake pretty much everyone makes, a confusion between name and developer name, right? The developer name is the API name, whereas the name is the label, right? Even I made the same mistake in the very first time, right? And it happens, that's okay. But you need to stay on top of it, right? So in case of queues, you have developer name and name, right? So where developer name is the API name. All right, so this should be case assignment queue. And now that you have the correct assignment done, you are able to fix the issue. It will now not take the fault path. Why? Because it is able to successfully end the flow. So we'll not see this screen popping up again. Do you want to give it a test? Let's give it a test. If I say log case here, I'll say email, working, equipment, next. So you see, you did not see the fault path showing up. So that's Salesforce Flows way to handle any kind of errors that show up and terminate the flow then and there without going into an unhandled territory and showing the user the right kind of message that they deserve to see. So if you have to configure any kind of faulty scenarios, you can add fault paths to every action that you have. You can add fault paths and accordingly take a decision. All right. So you can just connect these fault paths here and end it here. You don't have to go this route. Make sense? Great. Let's take a look at what else do we have on our use case. So what we did is we logged the case from the opportunity record page. We did not associate it to the opportunity, but we associated it to the parent account. All right. And we had the user fill in all the details, the three required fields or probably the two required fields. And as soon as the case was created, we were successfully able to fetch a queue information inside of Flow and assign it to the queue. All right. Now the only pending item is we also want to log a task for the case owner's manager. Now, when should this happen? Whenever we create a case, we are assigning it to a queue, right? But if someone reassigns it to themselves, correct? That's when we want to log a task. And this task first should be for this person who's the manager of the case owner, right? So for example, I jump in here, I go to the case record, right? I go to the case record here and I say, okay, I am currently available. So let's do something. Let's take this ownership. I'll just say, assign this to me. So when I do this change owner, which means I am now the case owner, correct? And when I am now the case owner, I want to be able to log a task for the case owner's manager, right? So this is something that should happen behind the scenes, correct? Now, do you need a screen flow for this? What do you say? That's right. You do not need a screen flow for this because now it's something that you need to do in the background, right? This is something you need to do behind the scenes. So why do you need a screen flow? Because you don't need any user input, right? So use case 5 is a combination of screen flows and then something that's coming up, which is record triggered flows, right? With that note, we start record triggered flows in our very next video. All right. So always try to assess the question, always try to assess the problem and try to make sense out of it and then do something inside of Salesforce. Just because we know how to write screen flows, we could have just created a case, a task here, right? We could have just created one more record and we would have created a task record here. Would that make sense? No. Why? Because currently the case is assigned to a queue. What's the sense of how do you pick the owner's manager? There's no manager to a queue. There's manager to a person, right? So this particular use case is a combination of screen flows and record triggered flows, right? I hope you were able to understand this. And if you are someone who figured out that, the second part should be a record triggered flow, it should not be a screen flow. Why has Himanshu put this into a screen flow? So that's good. That's good thinking. All right. And if you're able to resonate with me, that's also good. So we are good to start record triggered flows the next thing. All right. Now, talking about the challenge. Can this be done right now? The case owner's manager should receive an email. No, even this should be part of the record triggered flow because as soon as the task is created for the case owner's manager, that's when we want to send the email. So this would be an entire use case in itself. The logging of a task to the case owner's manager and receiving an email would be a specific use case that we'd be solving as part of record triggered flows. All right. And that's when this entire use case will be completed. So first part of it is done as part of the screen flow. The second part will be done as part of record triggered flow. All right. Now, the challenge wherein the first part says when a case is assigned to the queue member should be notified of the case. So how do you ensure that this happens? Since this is the challenge, I'd want you to pause the video here, think about it, probably solution it, and then come back and see, okay, how can this be done? All right. Great. So this thing is something that's available out of the box, right? So you don't have to create an email action here. You could do that. You could do that. So you can create email actions here. You see, send email is available, and you can give this a try. You can send out an email from here. All right. You have to include a body, the email template ID, and this is a standard email alert. But if you configure something on your own, you have an option. Let's say if you go to action here, you have an option to choose the email alert, right? So here it will show you all the email alerts that you have configured, and you can choose that particular email alert, and all you have to do is map which record ID to choose. That's it. So it will just pick the record ID and it will just send out the email based on that information. That can be done. But with queues, you know that there's something called notify users on a specific email box, right? If you take a look at queues, you'll see something's available here. Take a look at this case assignment queue we created, right? So here you have something that's called send email to members. So whenever assignment happens, right, for a task or a case object, an email is sent to this particular queue email. So they will be notified. If this is a common outbox or a common mailbox, they will get a notification from Salesforce and they can reassign the record to themselves. All right. In case you do not want to send the email from here, I would encourage you to try sending it out from here by simply creating an email alert. So how do you create email alerts? You come here and you say email alerts. You just create an email alert here. You just tag it to a template, to an email template. So I'll say um, case assignment notification, right? This is my name. What object should this be? This is the case object, right? And what template should it be? Now I can choose an email template from here, right? All the templates are available. So I'll just pick a random one for now and I'll simply say save. But before saving, I have an option to choose who should this be sent to, right? This is where you need to choose the relevant user. Now let's take a look at our use case. Our use case says that the queue member should be notified. Now who's the queue member? The queue member is nothing but the record owner, right? So I'll choose the owner option here, and this is where you can choose the case owner. So the case owner will be notified with whatever is in this particular email as a notification whenever a record is created, right? So you have created the entire email alert here, which contains the recipient and the email template. Once I create the email alert, just take a look at the name. It is called case assignment notification, right? Now let's come back to our flow. Let's refresh our page so that the email alert starts showing up. So what we'll do is after the case is created in a success scenario, not here, right? Only in a success scenario, I want to do an action. Now, what is that action? I want to choose the send custom notification for the case assignment. See, my action, my email alert is showing up here, right? So this is how you can create an email alert, right? Another option is you don't have to type in the entire action, go into the action and type it here. I believe this should also be available when you start typing it here. So you see, case assignment notification is your email alert and it is showing up here. So when you choose, you say send queue members an alert. All right. Now, what should be the record that you choose here? It should be the record that you just created, right? The case record. So you have a variable that's called case ID from create case. This is also something that's available from Flows. You cannot use the record ID. If you're thinking, why did Himanshu not use the record ID? Why would I use the record ID? That's a opportunity record, but I want to notify case information, which is of the case record that I just created. Where did I create that case record? I created as part of the flow, which is why Salesforce has created a case ID variable, which means as soon as the database operation happens, as part of which action? See this action. What is this called? This is called create case record under opportunity. So if I try to take this action and type here create case record under opportunity, Salesforce has given me, or rather the Salesforce flow has given me a variable which stores the record ID of the case, right? And this is exactly what I need to map it to my email template, right? So I'll say notify queue members of new case. All right, I'll say done. I'll say save. I'll say save. I'll say activate. All right, now let's go back. Let's go to an opportunity and let's try to create a new case from the opportunity page, right? Let's go back to sold test. This is an account record, and let's go to a related opportunity. We don't have that here. So I'll just go from here. Test sold op. Let's say log case. Case origin is phone, escalated, and reason is performance. I'll say next. Right? Everything worked fine. Let's check whether the email flew out or not. All right. Now, in case emails don't go out, there could be a reason that your deliverability is either no email or only system email, right? So you might want to set it to all email, right? That's one thing that you need to check. So if I go back here to setup and I'll say deliverability, so this is something under email administration, right? If I say deliverability, this should not be set as no access, right? Since it is all email, emails will go out. Okay, so that could be one reason why it is not going out if you are trying to test it and it's not working, right? Because if it failed, it would give you an error and it would take the fault path. Remember, it would not go that path, but it did not fail, right? Which means it's trying to send out that email and it has tried to create a case. Okay, and another thing, if you want to take a look at like what emails have flown out of Salesforce, there's something that's called email log files. So this is something that you can use for auditing. This is something that you can use to debug whether an email was sent out successfully, what kind of emails went out during a specific time period. So what is today's date? Today's date is 9th December. So I'll just say from 8th till 9th, and let's just say I don't want to see anything from yesterday. It's just something from today. I want to see everything, and I want to send this particular information in this particular email ID and just say submit request. So what this will do is this will give you an entire log of all the emails that have flown out of Salesforce as part of this particular time frame. There you can open and you can see each entry. About every entry you can see what happened. Was it forwarded? Was it routed? Did it fail? Did it not make the DNS? Did it not make the firewall? Whatever reason could be for the mail going or not going will be shown in that log. Okay, we just need to know how to read it. It's not that difficult, but yeah, it is on an Excel spreadsheet and you have every email that's sent as a row. Great. Now let's take a look whether the email arrived or not. All right. So for me, it shows up on the spam folder right now because I have not approved it and it is pretty much empty. But if you see, the email is showing up here, right? This is my email ID 0327, and this shows here that there's a test approval email that has come from this particular email ID via a Salesforce reply address, right? Hi there, link is here. Thank you. Very, very vague, but I just wanted to show that the email flows, right? Which means as part of this use case, we have been able to even send out emails, right? How did you guys used to do that before this? Using workflow rules or process builders, right? But now you're able to do this from flows, pretty much the same way. You just have to create an email alert and just associate it. Nothing fancy, all same. But yeah, even flows are capable of doing that, right? So that completes our use case. Partly because we have done the screen flow side of the work, we'll do the remaining record triggered flow work later in the record triggered flow series, right? Once we do the use cases on record triggered flow, we'll come back and solve this use case. Okay, that wraps up use case 5, and which is pretty much what I had to start you off with screen flows. And followed to this is coming up a super challenge. A super challenge is something that I want you to work on. I want you to show me that, Himanshu, yes, I have taken a look at all the 5 use cases you showed. I learned something out of it, and I'll try to make a flow and I'll show to you that yes, I can also write a screen flow just like you do, right? This is what I want you to do. Now, the super challenge is available and it will be it's right here, but I don't want to reveal it here. What I'll be doing it, I'll be posting it on my communities tab, right? So I'll just jump into YouTube. So I believe you have to subscribe for this, but if you subscribe here, you should be able to take a look at my communities tab, and that's where I'll be posting it, this section right here. right? So this is where I'll be posting it, and this is where you can take a look at it and you can respond or comment below once you are done with the use case. All right, so I'll paste the use case there in this particular community section. But if you're someone who cannot subscribe for any reasons, just let me know and I'll be happy to share that the entire use case on a comment on the YouTube video. Just reply on this particular use case video and just tell me that Himanshu, I'm not able to subscribe, but like I need the use case, I need the super challenge, and I want to show it off, right? So I'll share that particular use case to you there. All right, I can do that, not a problem. But since I would like to track everyone's participation, it is better that I put it on the community and you guys are able to write back to me under the same thread. That's the intention. All right, great. That completes the use cases here, and a super challenge is coming your way. I'll suggest take a look at the use case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos that we have done as of now. If you want to feel a bit more confident, a lot of information has been shared, and as part of this particular use case, I've talked about how to fetch a queue, right? That's something we learned. How to add a fault path and a fault message, that's something we learned. How to send out an email, that's something we learned, right? Everything else was pretty much the same. And as part of the super challenge, once you solve it, more things you learn, right? And the very next thing that comes in is record triggered flows. That is what the next set of videos in this Flow Builder Masterclass will be about. It would be record triggered flows. But again, like I said, I would encourage you to write down or comment me any use case on screen flows that you have, that you want me to take up and record a tutorial on, something that you find is confusing, some topic in screen flows that you don't understand, something that you want me to show. Just put that in the comment that Himanshu, can you probably create a quick video on this. I'll do that, and that would be another use case. Okay. All right, great. That's all about this use case. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, be ready for the super challenge and all the best. Bye.